Yeah.
It really has.
Got a haircut. That came from the.
So I'm Pete Orn, and I, of course, I forgot my name tag tonight and my binder, but I'm borrowing everything I can to get through the night. But is there anything from the last meetings that we want to bring up before we start the presentations tonight? All good. So I think we can move on to Jeremy and planning.
Yo, Jeremy. Good.
Where are we? What page?
What page?
Tab 4?
Tab 3, page 4.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I know most of you, but not all of you. Jeremy Martin, Planning and Development Director for the town. Been here for going on 7 years now. We perform all the planning, code enforcement, permitting, community development, economic development functions for the town. For the most part, we have a presentation PowerPoint. It's really only 2 pages to it. 96% of our budget is personnel. We have a staff of 4. There's myself, Clint Beveridge, the building official, code officer, and plumbing inspector. Shenley Neely is the town planner. And Madeline Hicks is our administrative assistant. And Madeline serves our office. We also work with the assessing office. So Madeline does administrative work for both code planning and assessing. Our permit activity is up significantly, I would add. Last year, we had issued 869 permits. The year before, 673. So building activity is through the roof in town. Estimated revenues this year out of our departments, $313,000. That's up considerably from last year because last year we had voters approved the short-term rental regulations. Those are coming online and people are starting to register their short-term rentals. So we estimate about $175,000 in short-term rental fees is what we have in the budget for this year. We outside of personnel, we have costs that go to office supplies, training, certifications, those kind of things. We are, for the most part, a bare bones operation. Again, it's mostly staff and benefits. One of the other things that I do for the town is I write a lot of grants and provide that function for not only code and planning kind of world, but also for the Snowball, for instance, or for wastewater on projects that they may be working on. In the last couple of years, we brought in about $2.5 million worth of grants to town. That sewer extension to Mountainside Community Co-op Mobile Home Park, which is a critical and dire need thing that's been dire for a number of years, is moving forward this year. We got federal funding for that. Master plan for the Camden Snowball and Ragged Mountain Recreation Area, including mountain bike park type of development. We got a big grant for that. We've gotten grants for harbor resiliency work. We just finished up a harbor resiliency planning harbor-wide project right now. That final report is in its draft. Final draft right now. We're reviewing that. We provide assistance and support to a number of committees. I do the planning board, the zoning board of appeals, the harbor committee as needed, the conservation committee as needed, the historic resources committee as needed. Historic resources right now, voters last year approved a it was a straw poll or whatever you call it. It was asked if the historic resources should move forward on implementing a historic preservation ordinance in the town, and voters overwhelmingly approved that. So I've been working with the Historic Resources Committee on developing that and drafting that, and the town will see that in the next month or so, would be my guess. That's kind of, I know I have been harassed in the past for talking a lot, and I can do that. And I told Carrie before we came in here, I haven't said much of anything over the last hour and a half, so I gotta keep my mouth shut, I think, because I go and go and go. But absolutely, go away, shoot away.
Do you worry about federal funding, given the sort of climate of grants and anything being rescinded?
Sure, that's a big worry. But as of this moment, nothing has been rescinded yet. The sewer project, which we were nervous about because that was congressionally directed spending, 1.3 million of, those are what known as earmarks or pork, back a number of years ago. That is finalized and that's in an account at the CDI, which is the Community Development Institute. They're the ones who I worked with on applying for that grant. They're the ones that are going to be the receiver. They have those funds. We should have the funds ready and lined up for the CDBG fund. That's $1 million that we got to go to the sewer project. That's like a $2.6 million project. That's all in line, and we have nothing's telling us that money's going away. The state's still telling us that money's earmarked and ready to go for that project. I think the biggest one is really the harbor kind of climate change and resiliency stuff. That is, I don't think I would submit any application to a federal agency that has the words climate resiliency in it or sustainability and those kinds of things, unfortunately. But I think it's just wait and see on those other ones. But the master plan work at the Snow Bowl, that was through EDA, and we've got those funds. Those funds, they're telling us to just keep moving along on the project and start invoicing that project. So we're going to do that. There's no indication that money's going away. We are looking at applying for a Northern Border Regional Commission grant in August. And everyone is saying, even that agency that has a new director, new appointed director, says those funds are still there and will be there for those projects. That's something I'm looking at for the Snow Bowl to implement the bike park and building trails and et cetera, because it's like $1 million project to do that kind of stuff. And that's all. And you'll hear about this later probably, but that's just to make that a four-season recreational destination.
On the line item, I am on, okay. On the line item for historic resources in here,
Yeah.
is this something that you're connecting with the Historic Resource Committee?
I had talked with Chris Frieden, the chair, and I think we thought that was an appropriate amount. There's nothing right now. I'm sorry, what page are you on the
I'm
bottom?
on page 4.
Four.
And line item 0103-1233.
Yeah, there's a difference.
Yeah, AK.
And I'm sorry, I can't find it. It's not on my page 4.
It's, town manager says 2,000.
Yeah.
You wanted 10.
Yeah, and I think that was just to try to make sure we were covered for, and that was something Chris had talked about. Chris was hoping for, I think, the 10 to provide the historic preservation ordinance, which it's not going to go to voters in June. It will go to voters in November. That's the plan. And to provide consultant services to the commission, again, this is all if it passes. We don't know that that's going to pass, to provide consultancy to them as they review projects. But, and these are changes to a historic property would need to go to them for approval. But as with everything in my department, I'm trying to shift as much as possible onto users of our services. So that's why you'll see, I don't think you see it, but our permit fees have kind of increased over the years. Short-term rental fees are $1,000 for what we call in commercial ones. Because of the cost associated with doing the work that we do. And rather than having that fall on the back of the taxpayer, we feel like I strongly feel those things should fall on the back of the user. So as far as this goes, the draft of the ordinance that the Historic Resources Committee is moving forward and I provided comments on, an applicant is going to be required to pay the cost of a consultant for the town.
Okay.
Not the town we're not going to have to pick up that cost, and we're going to have that be borne by an applicant that's trying to do a project. We did the same thing with planning board fees and harbor. If you remember last year, we did the new pier regulations in the harbor. Those are things that I spent a lot of time on. But in that, there's a requirement to hire a third-party consultant to do review for the planning board. That is not borne by the taxpayer. In the ordinance, that is a requirement of an applicant has to pay for a third-party consultant to provide review of the projects. So that's how we're handling those kind of fees and those kind of costs moving forward. I think it's totally appropriate to handle it that way.
Okay, thank you.
Any other
Anyone
questions for
else?
Jeremy? Just a comment, two comments. One, the budget looks pretty boring, which is great.
I can attest that our work is not boring, but our
Boring is
budget may
good.
be.
And the second thing is, there's two types of planning and code offices. One that kind of tells you how you can't do something and why the regulations say you can't do something. And the other is one that helps you guide you through the process and tries to get you where you want to go. And luckily we have the latter, not the former here. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, we do. And unfortunately, we have to say no sometimes, but we try to get people to what they want.
But you don't start with no.
No, we don't.
That's important.
Exactly.
Question.
Sure.
Given the kind of increase in the amount of building activity that you mentioned, do you see it possible that you'll need to bring on any new employees?
I don't at the present time. The short-term rental regulations require inspections annually, and these are new inspections that we haven't done. But Clint, again, he's certified code officer. He's also certified fire inspector. I'm a certified code officer as well. So when it's needed, I can get out in the field and do some inspections. I might be dangerous in some places. You may not want me to inspect certain things, but I can certainly do life safety inspections, and I know what I'm looking for. So the present time, I don't think there's a need for it. I would certainly include it in the budget if I felt we needed it.
Thank you.
Jeremy,
Go ahead, Jeff.
can you just remind me, the grants you're going after next year, about how many applications do you?
Apply for it?
Yeah, no, I mean, manage. I mean, just because it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Because you're juggling the Molyneux one, the sewer one.
Yeah, well, the sewer, I will say, I mean, I have a certain
That's pretty
function in
done.
this,
That's
like
that you're about done with
applying
that.
for them is one thing, and then administering them and managing them is another. And
Yeah.
some of these are not falling on me to do. Like, for instance, the master plan grant that we got from the Maine Outdoor Office of Outdoor Recreation, that I applied for. I'm helping Jeff Nathan, the new Parks and Rec director, with that. He's handling the kind of the administrative functions of those grants. Dave and his crew are going to be handling
The sewer.
the administrative functions for the sewer grants. So I can keep going.
No, so the motive behind my question is your sort of development, and you're looking at the future of the town, and
Mhm.
major grants come through your office. And I'm trying to figure out, do you have bandwidth for that? Is that working for you?
Just Jeremy.
It's not just me. I mean,
isn't?
Audra does it too. I mean, we all kind of do it.
Dave St. Laurent writes grants.
We all kind of do it. I think it all depends where the funding's coming from and what bandwidth each and every one of us has at the moment. I'm thinking of, again, the northern border. I'm going to be working on some grant applications for Curtis Island historic preservation
Oh, yeah.
grants that are out there. So, it's just kind of based on, I think, not just interest, but where it falls within staff needs at the time. I mean, we don't have a huge staff, and we definitely help each other through all of the projects that everyone's working on.
And I'd say one of the people who's most, their workload increases the most,
That's good.
when there are a lot of grants that we have to manage, really is Jody in the finance office.
Yeah.
Because she's the one who, tracks all the spending, which is really, when you're talking about sort of managing.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot, but it also falls on us. When we give Jody requests for reimbursement, we need to make sure we're dotting our I's and crossing our T's so she doesn't have to chase it, and where those things go. That's important, I think.
Ready for a motion?
I move that we accept the town manager's amount of, do I have to read it? Hang on.
A second.
$811,960.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Opposed? Unanimous. On to Carrie.
Hello, everyone. Good to see you. The whole time I was sitting there listening to Jeremy, all I could do is see that wire over there and hope I didn't trip over it when I came up. So I'm half home.
Yep.
Where's Terry?
So I won't go too much into, read what's down here. I've been, this is my 11th year assessing in Camden. My deputy assessor, Caitlin, this is her 10th. One thing that's really good about our department is our strong suits dovetail. What Caitlin really enjoys doing, I don't, and what I enjoy doing, she doesn't. So we're a pretty good team there. And now that we have administrative assistant support from Maddie, it's just really working really well.
Can I know what page are we working on?
I have no idea.
You are on tab 3, page 4.
It's the same page.
Oh, yes, Mark. Remember Carrie and Jeremy, they share administrative services, so they're
What did she say? Terry?
merged.
We share an office space, we share an admin assistant.
Oh, same
We
thing?
share everything.
Copiers.
Okay.
We already.
And we
I
already,
tried to talk him out before we got up here.
Yeah,
We already
we're
approved your
all-
budget.
We're all done. We got it.
we already approved your budget.
Oh, okay, good. Thanks very much.
So always happens.
What, it's right. We should, I've learned to accept it. Yeah.
But you can do the IT part. I think you were going to do some of that too.
Sure. I'll skip right along to that. I did want to talk just a little bit about the reval. We did a reval last year, and our property values went up on average 44%, which meant that the town's value grew by $780 million.
Cool.
We went from, I think it was 1.4 something billion to, oh, now I got to do my math, I don't remember
Almost
now, but
over
it was, yeah, it was 2.2. It was dramatic. And I had hoped things would calm down a bit. And they did seem to be slowing down, but they ramped up again. And I saw a stat.
What does that mean, Carrie? Ramped up
I'll
again?
explain that.
Okay.
I saw a stat the other day, just a couple of days ago, that said from 2020 through 2024, real estate values in Maine rose 73.1%. That was the highest in the nation. Florida was number 2 at 70%.
More than
Wow.
Berkeley?
Wow.
Yeah. And what we saw was not just happening to us, it was happening through the state and through the country. I have some real estate brokers who I respect a lot, and I called them last week to ask what was going on, hoping to hear that what I'm seeing tick up isn't really happening, but it actually is. And there was an article in Penn Bay Pilot a couple days ago that said that in Knox County, the change from last year to this year for number of units sold went up 38.37%. The statewide average was 13.28. And then in valuation, Knox County went up 14.46%, and the state was 9.07. And we're seeing it. What we were seeing for a while was days on market was increasing, and now that's beginning to roll back. It makes me nervous. It's not, we'd really rather hear things calm down, and we'll see what happens. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of uncertainty in the economy now, and so, yeah, Mark.
You're working on Rockport's evaluation now?
Yeah.
So they're going to be hit pretty hard as well.
Not as much, because in Camden, we did a statistical update in 2022, and knowing that we were doing the reval in 24, we left 23 alone. In Rockport, because we weren't doing it until this year. We did an update in 22 and 23. So the gap between where we are in the present and where we need to be at the end of a reval is less.
Okay.
So, for example, in Rockport right now, the overall town-wide ratio is at 88%. We typically go to 95 on a reval. So that means we've only got about 7% to go if things hold the way they are right now. In Camden, I think we were down 68% or something like that. So we had to go from 68 to 95, and that was quite a jump.
That's right, okay.
Yeah, because that was how hot the market was during those years. Like I said, it seemed like it was cooling down. So in 2024, it wasn't nearly as crazy as it was in 23 and 22.
Are you still doing Rockland as well?
No,
Okay.
that was just a quick dalliance. So IT. So the IT part of the budget, there are more than assessing involved there. We're in charge of the town's tax maps and we do all that editing and such. But also wastewater, public works, planning and codes, they all use some of the features of IT. I mean, Dave uses GIS probably maybe even more than we do. Hard to say, but they're making great use of the technology. Working especially with CAI. Jeremy just added short-term rental management software. That's a new thing. It's an expense now, but it'll bring in much more than it's costing in the future.
Is that the operational software line? Is that what that is? Thanks.
Yeah. And so anyway, basically, we're doing what we can to be more efficient, effective, and analytical, and everything is headed toward GIS, and we're grabbing a hold of that technology and using it.
And also another sort of significant increase is our managed services contract. So that's with our IT sort of support provider. So it's the managed services for like security updates and, all the cloud-based computing, managing those licenses and everything that goes along with it. But it's also, when somebody has an issue with a hard drive or, a physical issue with one of their workstations, they'll come in and provide support with that. So it's just getting much more expensive. We talked about last year how we're on the verge of, it's almost appropriate for us to have like a full-time IT person, but we're just not quite there. And even if we did have that person, we'd still need some level of a managed services contract for all the security side of things. So, we're just seeing those costs increase because one, we've got more software to manage that has to integrate with other systems that we have. And two, they're feeling sort of the same squeeze that everybody else is in terms of, workforce and finding qualified people and trying to keep them. So
Was last year the big increase in that same line? Was it
I
2 years
think I
ago?
showed you what it would look like if we had a
That was a
person,
discussion.
but I didn't recommend it. It was more of just if we did, this is what it looked like.
And then the last few years, we've been expanding the GIS
Yeah.
software. Is that expansion done? And
No, we're going to have to
So-
keep doing that. Yeah.
and
So
adding
that's
adding
going
more
to
to
be
the
an
website, if there was
ongoing.
more accessibility.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, and Caitlin is spending a chunk of her time now trying to coordinate and manage the services that we have to make sure we're not duplicating. I was going to say duplicating and overlapping, but that's the same. I just overlapped. But anyway, so we're doing our best to make sure that we're using it wisely. We have one particular thing. AI is creeping into it a little bit. We're trying out a service called Gamma. We're sharing the cost with Rockport. We're getting, and that's going to help us analyze our real estate sales and what's going on the mapping. So it'll be quite an aid to what we're doing.
I mean, software is not getting cheaper.
No,
Quick question, even though the GIS is expensive, my understanding is that it makes so many functions way more efficient and actually saves time,
Is that what-
especially in the planning office.
That was the point I was clumsily making a moment ago.
Oh.
Yeah.
Good job, Mark.
Anybody else?
No questions?
Thank you very much.
Motion to accept the IT budget?
Oh,
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed?
All right.
Unanimous.
thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Which IT one did we, was it the department head or town manager?
Town manager.
Yeah, we have to be specific when we make that.
Is it you? It's you.
Good, Dave now? Welcome back.
Yes. Well, good evening, everyone. So I have a really consolidated slideshow. I think really what I'm going to talk about is just an overview of what roads really are. When I talk about roads, I talk about, roads are an essential part of our infrastructure. It's how we get around. It's how we transport people that are, have to go to the hospital. It's how we get to work. But roads are, when I talk about roads, I'm talking about everything within the right of way. So we're talking about the road surface itself.
Okay.
We're talking about the infrastructure underneath the road. We're talking about sewer lines. We're talking about stormwater lines. We're talking about drainage ditches on the side. We're talking about sidewalks, bike lanes, trees. We're talking about everything. So when we say roads, it's just not the road. It kind of encompasses everything within the right of way and under the road too. So I just wanted to kind of start off with that. So pretty much we have 60 centerline miles of road, and 38 of them are town-owned and the rest are state-owned. We have 12 miles of sidewalk, and we're responsible for maintaining all of it for the most part, all year round. Yeah. So one of the big things that we changed in terms of trying to plan for long-term planning for road reconstruction is we used to use a system called RSMS. It was a road maintenance software system. And what you would do is you'd drive around on the road and you take a ruler and a straight edge out and you try to determine all the faults and defects in the road. And it was kind of subjective. And it was, after you look at, 60 miles of road, it all kind of looks the same after a while. It all looks bad. So, to get that subtle differences in the condition of the road, it's difficult. So there's a new type of technology out there, and it's called Street Scan, and we started doing that this year. We budgeted in last year's budget, and what it does is it uses a car, and they drive around, and it has a 365-degree LiDAR system, and it measures all of the defects, imperfections, cracks, potholes, and then just feeds it all into the supercomputer, I'll say, and it generates a report. And it gives you basically a road condition. So the next slide kind of shows the different pavement condition index. And each one of these, the red ones are the ones that are in the worst conditions, and the orange ones are like kind of next in line. So you can go to the next slide, the spreadsheet, maybe the spreadsheet.
That's
yeah.
really tiny. Can you make that bigger?
That's just kind of like to give you an overview. You're not going to really figure out all of this is more what I want to kind of go over with you. This is all of those roads that are in the red category.
Okay.
And really what's important here to understand is this kind of gives you an idea of all of the roads that are in the worst shape, basically for total reconstruction. So it's 561,000 would be the cost just to fix those roads. So if you look at the budget is of paving is less than that. So we're almost kind of in a little bit of a catch-up mode, even though we've been doing a good job of maintaining our roads, believe it or not. And you wouldn't think that the way they look right now, because it's been a real rough winter. We had a lot of ice and frost in the ground, and things have heaved up to 3 inches. That's why you see some of the structures are lower than the pavement itself. And that'll all settle down after the frost is out of the road. But that freeze thaw cycle really wreaks havoc on a road. A road really only has a life expectancy of Maine of what I've been seeing is 10 years. So we'll recondition the road, we'll rebuild the road. And then 10 years, you start seeing, you know, all that frost act, freeze and thaw, basically makes the road kind of bend and crack. And then once the cracks start developing, then the water gets in the cracks. And once the water gets in the cracks, it's a vicious cycle. It starts exponentially starting to get worse. And one of the important things you have to remember is you have to stay after this, because if you don't fix those roads when they're at that point where you can just resurface them and you wait, they become more expensive exponentially to fix. So this is something that you really need to stay on top of and maintain continuously, or you're gonna lose the battle. You know, you start falling behind, and once you fall behind, you get to a point where another community I was in rough shape because they hadn't kept up with it, and then it's super hard to catch back up again. So, and it's really expensive. So basically, my budget changes.
As far as you can.
So I kind of gave a little snapshot of the budget changes from 25 budget to this new 26 budget. So one of the items that that have changed is the full-time wages. Probably the biggest change in full-time wages is I, like everyone else, has a staffing problem, you know, finding people that are skilled in running equipment and doing various things that we do is always difficult. And I didn't really have any redundancy in my equipment operator area. So I had an opportunity to hire a person within my budget, kind of on a part-time basis, but he was looking for a full-time job. And I also manage Midcoast Solid Waste. So he was kind of wanting to work there, but he wanted to work at Public Works too. So we developed this 25-75 split. So we pay 25. Camden basically pays him his full wages, but Midcoast Solid Waste reimburses us. And what that gives me is versatility. If I have a problem over there or if I have a problem over here, I kind of have a spare. And it's kind of nice because Camden only ends up paying 25% of that. So we split his time. He comes over to the garage 1 to 2 times a week, and then he goes over to Midcoast, and his week starts on a Tuesday and ends on a Saturday. One of the other good parts about that is when we're out plowing for 15, 20 hours at a time, you'll be cleaning up these storms, and then you get to the end, and then everybody's just out of gas. You know, nobody can do it anymore, and then the storm is still kind of lingering, and you still got to do cleanup, and you need a couple extra people to kind of fill in for that. And that's kind of what he does also. So it's kind of a redundancy and a kind of a safety net almost. And it's working out pretty good. He's in the National Guard, so he's not here all the time. You know, it's just a really kind of a nice fit. He's a younger person. And when you find those people, you have to go after it and bring those people on. You can't lose that opportunity because equipment operators are far and few in between. The second area, our safety equipment, we just had a kind of an uptick in some of our maintenance and crane inspection and gear. Gas, oil, and diesel, that went up slightly. And part of that is also because we've done a lot more work than we have in the past. So we're kind of more of a winter kind of department for the longest time, and we've really been expanding what we do in the summertime. And you can see it out there. We're doing a lot more work in the summertime. We're keeping 2 pieces of equipment running all the time. 2 excavators are always out doing projects. We've done a lot of the larger projects for the town where they haven't had to outsource any of those things. Like we rebuilt, the Marine Avenue, walkway down to the water. That would have been really expensive to have somebody do. We did that all internally. Basically all the projects that we can do, we take on now. So that saves the town quite a bit of money because, hiring contractors to do that work is extremely expensive. And if they can even fit you in, that's the other part of it. And fuel's also gone up in price a little bit from last time. Uniform and clothing, I have a little bit of a request in here, and that's an extra, I think it's an extra $500. Our department's one of the only departments that the guys don't have an actual coat, like a safety yellow coat, like fire department has it, police department has it. So I want to get the guys a decent coat for the winter times. That's why that's in there as part of their clothing allowance. Electricity, that's gone down, and that's basically based on usage. So I kind of did a little adjusting there. Our fleet maintenance, we have really kind of not kept up with replacing our equipment. We have a lot of old equipment, and now we're really seeing it based on our repairs. So we repair almost everything internally, and I can give you a printout of the detail on our fleet maintenance account, and it's just death by 1,000 cuts. I don't think there's anything on there that's over $1,500, but we're already over budget on this because we're fixing a lot of broken stuff all the time, and it's old. Our street maintenance, I talked a little bit about that, and I want to kind of bolster that a little bit to kind of catch up a little bit based on the street scan data. And the street maintenance account, the street paving account, those kind of complement each other. The street maintenance is more of like potholes and kind of smaller patches and repairs. The street paving is more of just mainline paving. It's when we do long stretches of paving. Storm drains, that increase is representing some stormwater work that we're planning on doing on Gould Street, as well as on McGonagall and Hardin Ave. There's a line that goes through there. It's one of the main lines that takes most of the water in that watershed off of McGonagall Street and takes it down to Hardin, which goes to the brook behind and then ends up in the ocean. That's basically deteriorated. It's an old steel corrugated metal pipe, and it's collapsed, and it's causing people to be flooded in that area that are tied into it. So we're going to do that work ourselves. Like that work right there, I looked at having that lined, and that was almost $100,000 just to have them line that line. But we're going to do it ourselves, and it'll probably be somewhere around $20,000. It just gives you kind of a handle on the cost that we save when we do it ourselves. Rental equipment, that's representing, for the longest time, we have an excavator that we bought, and we've been using that almost continuously throughout the summertime, but it wasn't enough. We needed enough. We want to keep 2 crews going all the time. So we rented an excavator for the whole summer last year. And this was a gamble where I lost. I was a little over ambitious with doing the work. We did a bunch of ditching out on East Fork and Molineux Road, and you've probably seen it, which we did some on Bisbee, but you have to keep up with that. And because if you don't maintain those ditches, it makes your roads deteriorate more quickly. And I was planning on a nice, easy winter like we've been having and I got walloped in the winter. So I got hit in the winter and I got hit in the summer, and I lost the battle on this one, but the town ended up gaining a lot of work, I think. And we're going to try and shoot for that again this year, and this will kind of take care of that, I'm hoping. Street paving, again, that's back to the street scan data showing you just a slight bump up from it. We've been keeping that kind of steady, but we really need to kind of raise that a little bit to kind of keep pace with the work that we need to do maintaining the roads. And east-west in Montgomery dams, really what's going on there is that I plan on continuing to do the maintenance and the inspections, but my game plan on that is, if you've ever been to the tabletop exercise for the emergency management plan, it's nice to have, but it doesn't really mean anything to me, because you look at it and it's kind of outdated. It kind of talks about, knocking on people's doors, and this isn't where we're at today. We need to have a management plan that you open up, and it kind of tells you sequencing of what to do in case of a real emergency. This is what you do. you open this gate on this dam and you know, this is to save people's lives and to kind of protect the community. And we don't really, it's a reactionary plan that we have right now. It's not really like, it doesn't tell anybody what to do if you really have a problem and how to resolve it. And I talked with the Kleinschmidt, the dam engineers, and he says, that's a common problem. People try to kind of do it within in-house, and it doesn't encompass the sequencing of what really needs to happen if there's a real emergency based on the science. So like every one of these dams has a flash board. Flash boards are these boards that are at the top of the spillway, and they're reinforced by a pin. Over the years, people have replaced those pins because they don't like replacing the flash boards. You know, it's like, I'm sick of messing with these flash boards. So they go and replace the pin with a steel pin that isn't rated for the amount of water being held behind it. That's all a real scientific calculation, and it needs to have certain tensile strength. And that isn't the way it is right now. And this emergency management plan will spell out tensile strength of the flashboard pins, because those pins theoretically should almost give out once a year in the case of an emergency, and they're not. And these are all things that I've discovered the more I've dug into this dam control agent position. And like the Seabright Dam, you know, when do you open the dam? What gate? There's 2 gates. Which gate do you open? When do you open it? Like how much flow should you be looking at before you open it? When do you open the East and West Dam? How much water should, you know, they're going to go through that and give us real scientific data on the sequencing of it. So it's like a flip chart, you know, all right, we just got 4 inches of rain and everything's flooded. What's the first thing you do? All right, you do what you have everybody sign up to a system where if they live along the river, where you can send them a text alert immediately. You know, those are all the kind of things that this plan will go through and kind of spell out, so that the town has a real document that can be built upon. And it's not terrible. It's just not where it needs to be. And this is an attempt to do that. So that's budgeted in here.
Is that the dam control agent?
No, that's the 3 $5,000 lines on the 3 dams at the bottom. Yeah.
Okay.
So dam control agent basically is a stipend that pays for me and pays for other people that are working on the dam. Like I'll be in this weekend. I'll be in looking at the dam probably on Sunday, because I already know right now that, you know, we're going to get up to between 1.5 inches. And the last time they said we had 1.5 inches rain, I got 4 inches of rain, and I basically flooded everything. And we were actually at the point where I activated the emergency management plan, pulled it out, had to meet with the fire chief and the police chief and watch everything real closely. You know, that's a possibility. We don't know. This is around the time it happens. You know, right now you notice that the river is really flowing really hard right now. That's because I have all the gates open and I'm trying to make as much space in the lake as I can to absorb that water that's going to come down on Sunday, between Sunday and Monday. And God knows what it will be. You just don't know. So it's all about preparation, monitoring. I go out there every day. I have an app. I monitor, you know, what the condition of, what the level of the lake is, what the level of the spillway is at each location. I look for undercutting of the dam so that, you know, the ends don't fail. I look for just different things that could possibly be an issue or kind of point to me that there's maybe a problem that, you know, we're not seeing. These kinds of things you just have to look at them all the time, because it's the time you don't look at it is when something happens, believe it or not. So it's a more in-depth job than people realize. And, you know, I come in on the weekend frequently to kind of look at it, just because I have a conscience about all this. I don't just go home and go, heck, it'll be all right. The water will go over the dam, and it's not the way I think about it.
So I have a question,
Mm-hmm.
because I always have lots of questions. You've been here 6 years now?
Yeah, it's about my 6 years.
Just about that. And in that time, I've noticed that when you think about the age of the town and the infrastructure, we've sort of gotten by for a long time not doing a lot of infrastructure repairs, which is sort of surfaced while you've been in charge. And so you're taking real handle on that, I think we're very fortunate to have you doing that. Big picture, how much of that is going to need to be replaced and updated? Because now you do, the dams, you do the wastewater plant, you sort of look at the whole infrastructure now. What sort of, where are we in terms of what we're going to have to face and what we're going to have to deal with to be realistic?
It's kind of endless.
I think about this and being in charge of all those components of it gives you a better perspective of really what needs to be done, because each one of these things has an overlap. So, I talk about the road, everything under the road, but really when I talk to you the next time about, the sewer department just had a bond that was passed to take care of some I&I problems, which is water getting into the sewer line. And what we've been doing is we've been cameraing everything, and we've developed a matrix that outlines all of the components under a road. So if we camera a line and the line has a bad condition, and then we look at the surface of the road and that has, we give everything a ranking. So then we can kind of sort which things need to rise to the top. So I guess to answer your question, it's all coming together. It's kind of in the planning stages of it, but it isn't going to end. It's going to be continuous for quite a while, because this kind of work isn't the kind of work where you do it and it's done. It's about continuous improvement. It's about looking at things and planning down the road. I'm looking at 5 years out on everything, what I do, and once you've developed a system of evaluating it, then what you see is efficiencies that you gain by the overlap of the departments, and the transfer station, and all these things start overlapping. And now you're instead of having these things spread out like this, they kind of start overlapping and consolidating. So it's more manageable, but it's not going to be over quickly. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I just get the feeling that a lot of infrastructure wasn't done for a long time.
I think,
And for the first time, we're getting an overall view of how to work on the entire town, not just, we have to pave this street. But like you said, you have to do the street and you have to do the sewer line at the same time. And we updated the wastewater plant. It's just, I feel like we're getting the big picture, but I just want people to be prepared for what it's going to take to maintain a very livable, situation.
well, people in Camden expect, things to be done right, and they expect the roads to look decent, and they expect them to be plowed, and to have that level of service, it's going to always cost us a little bit of money to do that. But there's most of the sewer lines were built when I was born, in 1967. So, and they're built out of clay. It was a different material. So they're starting to fall apart now. That's what we're seeing with sewer lines. Mm-hmm. Roads are just continuous. The facilities are, kind of have a curve where they age out. So there's all of these different components, and they're all kind of have different times when the time is where they're at their life expectancy. And you're right, they're all kind of seeming to line up right now. And that's kind of, it's unfortunate, but it's good for people that want to stay busy too. If you're a person that that wants to kind of just take it easy, this isn't kind of the job for you.
But I guess just to give you an idea, because we do have a good model for how much this costs to do it holistically and to do it, the right way, where you're addressing sort of all these overlapping problems at once, or not problems, but overlapping infrastructure needs where it's failing at once, is really Pearl Street, because, it was replacing the sewer. The water company did a project. We really made a huge effort to address the I&I issues by working with the homeowners on their laterals, which is their connection into the sewer line, stormwater,
sidewalk, trees. We did everything on Pearl Street.
everything. And
I think Audra's going to give you that number.
$500 per linear foot.
Yeah.
So that's expensive. There's no way around it. There's no way of really, and
But it's
$500 per
yeah.
linear foot. And Dave was the general contractor for the whole thing. So imagine he was the general contractor and our public works department, aside from the sewer construction part of that project. They did everything else. So that's a huge save, like $500 per linear foot. That is probably the cheapest that we could possibly do it. So
And if you don't do it together like we did, you might as well just double that. If you just do one piece of it and then go back and do the other piece of it, you know, it's kind of, it's just where we're at. I mean, we can just not do anything too. That's totally.
One more quick comment, and part of my other job, I had the opportunity to talk to one of the select people from one of the smaller towns that's not as well off as Camden is. And they said they don't have the money to fix the roads. They took away the stipend for the select board. They're cutting costs. We're
Wow.
very fortunate that we're able to do this infrastructure work. And we're very fortunate to have David to do this. I always thought Audra stealing in from Rockland was one of the greatest thefts of all time.
I agree. But I guess, you know, and we're bringing it up because, you know, it's not just the roads. We've got facilities that are in the same position. Like you know, we talk about the dams a lot, the high hazard dams. There are some that are really, really bad condition. So, you know, we're looking at a situation where we're really going to have to prioritize.
Like, I'll give you an example. So when I was in Rockland, I had put in a sand and salt shed over there, and they wanted to put like a $2 million sand and salt shed. And I researched and found a rub building, and they use these like in the Antarctic, you know, and we saved a ton of money putting that in, and we got it all in place. And then we did that. And then they were thinking about doing it here in Camden, and we had a meeting, and I came down. And the reason they wanted to do it was because our sand and salt shed, the one that I'm at now, was the back wall was ready to blow out. So the solution was they piled a pile of dirt behind it so the back wall doesn't blow out. Well, that was when I was over there. I've been here 6 years, and the pile of dirt is still behind the building. So
building blown out?
no, because
We've got this structural pile of dirt.
we have a pile of dirt behind it, but a pile of dirt up against a wood structure is going to eventually rot out. And it's not going to,
Yeah,
you know what I
right.
mean? So that's just an example of like, you know, so we try and triage things, and we try to do the things. I always look at the people come first, you know, and then the facility comes second. Like our facility is all dirt and bumpy, and, you know, and I'm like, I have a hard time paving that before I pave a road that needs it. So I'm, you know, that's how I think about it. You know, we're here to like do things for the community and the people. And, you know, like our kind of creature comforts at the facility kind of come second. And if you come down to the facility, you'll probably recognize that. So there's not a lot of money going into the public works garage right now. Karen?
Yeah, this is not anything to do with this budget right now, but it's a suggestion because you had talked about how bad the roads get with flexing. I would like to see the town do a study on paving with recycled tires. The state is doing it on off-ramps on 95 down in the Portland area. If we could do a test on maybe one road that gets bad, like mine, with recycled,
You have a brand new road.
I know, with recycled tires so that we could see, because it costs more upfront, but in the long run, they don't fall apart the way the roads do now. But that needs to be researched. I'm not an engineer, so I can't state that equivocally, but
I did look into that, and, you know, our paving plants are kind of, it's based on locality.
yeah,
So you got to kind of go with what they make, kind of,
Right.
so to speak. And
Mhm.
if they're not into making rubber asphalt, then you're kind of out of luck. You know, I guess we could try a small piece if we could find whoever makes it, but I haven't found anybody that's making recycled tired pavement. I did look into it.
yeah, just.
I went through this
well,
too,
you
Dave.
might
I don't
catch
know
up
why,
with
but
the
I
s-
did.
You
Did you
might
find
ask the
anybody?
No,
state.
it's down in Portland.
Yeah, it's
They're
important.
too far away.
Yeah, by the time it gets here, it's
You
cold.
can't source it
Yeah.
here.
No, well, they sourced it. Let's find out where they sourced it.
In
I'm
Portland.
just saying.
It's in Portland.
Research,
Yeah,
if we could research it further for future budgets, just to see if it'd work better.
Yeah.
We'll do Ragged Mountain Road that way.
You can do mountainside.
All right, I'm gonna
Do your parking lot.
I'm going to channel Sarah real quick here. With your shared employee, this budget represents the full cost of the employee?
Yes, and then
and
we
then
get
the revenue.
we get reimbursed.
So the
from
revenue is
Midcoast
not being
Solid Waste.
represented, so that's why. Again,
And-
that's a Sarah question, so I had to ask it
Yes.
on behalf of her.
And one of the other things too is like, there is overlap in the functions that we're doing. So there's no revenue line on my budget, but we have probably been sending Midco Solid Waste a lot of bills for work that we're doing, helping them. So there's some offset to that whole symbiotic relationship that you're not seeing here. But they're also benefiting from it, from us doing it, because we're not charging them as much. So there's that also going
Yeah,
on.
it's always helpful, like Sarah would say, to see the revenue changes as well as the expenses, because this really isn't,
Yeah,
it's really not an 11% increase.
right,
So it's,
right.
That was the same in the IT department because of the short-term rental revenue.
the other question is regarding the paving, the road maintenance, and I assume sidewalk maintenance as well. It goes somewhere in there. Does the budget reflect what you need or your capacity, or are you just trying to keep
I
the
think
budget
it's,
down?
I think it's a function of our capacity.
That's okay. That's what I was
Yeah,
wondering.
because we have taken on a lot for this next year. And when you pave a road, you need to do everything along the edges of it, or it's just not going to last. And you notice the last roads we've done, I mean, if you go out to Ragged Mountain or Bisbee or East Fork and you start looking at what we did along the edges and the stormwater portion of it, that has to be done. And a lot of the roads, there's two ways to do a road. You can do it like just put a couple inches down and put a thin coat of pavement down. It looks great. It just doesn't last long. You really got to get a crown in the road and build it up. And to do that, you end up spending a little more money on pavement because you got to put it thicker in the middle. Because you want the water to run off of it and go to the edges and then clear and then run down the edges to the place you want to put it. And if that doesn't happen, the water will lay in the road and then it causes defects and cracks and it doesn't last as long. So we're trying to do it right, and it's a matter of our capacity
Okay,
to do it right.
So increasing that wouldn't matter.
I can do it wrong and do more if
Right.
you want, but
And my last comment, or did I see that there's 2 new trucks in a budget for this department?
Yes.
So that's coming up at the end of that.
Yeah, for capital.
Okay. So
Capital,
to deal with your equipment maintenance line.
yeah, we're in kind of rough shape with plow trucks right now. We actually did buy one truck last year that we wanted to buy like 6 years ago, I think.
Mhm.
And we didn't get it in time for the winter season. We haven't even got it yet. And we ordered that last year. So that's the other problem with this kind of thing, is that if you don't put the order in for a piece of equipment now, you're not going to get it for almost a year. That's
Better than an ambulance.
Yeah,
Sounds like.
that's true.
Isn't that 3 years?
it's still a weird world we're in now. You know what I mean?
Any other questions?
I had a couple questions, actually the same one, a couple of the ones Peter just asked about sort of, you had in your presentation the figure of like 560,000, which I think was based off of the street scan results.
Yeah.
And what you,
And
if we were to fix all of the red roads, what it would cost.
Yep.
Was that right?
Yep.
So obviously what you have in here is a little less, and now I understand why.
Mhm.
Do you think that we are staying on top of it? That's one question. And I'm curious, just how long does that street scan results, like how often do we need to do that?
Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
So, your first question, I think we're keeping up with it better than most places. It's all on how much you want to keep up with something, right? You want to be right on top of every road all the time. That's a tough thing to do. Most communities don't do that. We're in probably pretty good shape, but if we don't take care of those red roads, they're going to get more expensive to fix. So we really want to stay on top of that. The street scan is good for 2 years. So I'm going to do it every other year, and there'll be an update. And my objective is to get those red roads, turning green and not have as many of them. And I'm going to continue to do that. But I don't think we're in bad shape with our roads. I mean, some people will disagree with you because they want them to be perfect everywhere, but that's an unrealistic expectation. Yeah. Any questions?
I have a question, Dave. I think it's kind of like one of those overlapping things. I was just curious, because you have the dam control agent stipend, but then underneath the $5,000 ones for the, for the McGonagall dams in Montgomery and the Seabright, there was also a line that said, under McGonagall Dams, it says dam control agent, 2,100. And then mine kind of, it looks like something was cut off, so I wasn't sure what that said. And then under each one for Montgomery Dam and Seabright Dam, there was also dam control agent stipend and FICA Medicare. So is that like part of the 30%? I mean, part of the 30,000 is going into that 5,000? Does that make, you know what I mean? I just was curious.
So
You know what I'm talking about?
my department head line is saying 5, 5, and 5 on the dams. And it's saying,
Right.
saying 30 for the stipend.
Right.
So,
Yes.
yeah.
When like on the area that's underneath, like where that gives all of the
Oh, okay.
description of what each thing is.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
I don't know what this is called. Sorry. Could have been. a
Oh,
little
I
more-
see. That's,
But on each one of those, it also says dam control agent, and one of them says 2,100, and then the other ones don't have anything next to it. But I was just curious how those intertwined with the dam
think-
control agent.
I think Jody's going to have to help me out with that one. I think that's more of a kind of how she's divvying that up. But I don't know.
So the three $5,000 line items, is that what you're talking about, Courtney?
She's talking.
Yeah, I mean, it was
yeah.
just, I was just curious because it didn't, like, we have the
I think you muted yourself.
It's here.
Sorry, I thought I hit it on mute.
I got it.
So you have the dam control agent stipend and then the $5,000 for the dams, but then underneath where it has like the description part, the dam control agent is underneath each one of those.
Yeah.
At dam control stipend and FICA Medicare. So I was just curious, my brain didn't understand how that all kind of worked together.
Yeah, so the wages, FICA and Medicare have been pulled out of those three explanations down at the bottom and are strictly in the stipend part. And the $5,000 for each dam is more just maintenance costs and any type of supplies or equipment for taking care of these dams. So all of those wages have been removed. So those $5,000 amounts those are not wages.
Gotcha. Okay. So like when it says where it has like a little dash next to it, that's like minus those things. So that won't ever be part of that
Correct.
stipend for the dams. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? We ready for a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the Public Works budget as presented.
Seconded.
Any more discussion? I guess they're both the same amount, so it doesn't really matter which one we approve, but town managers, I assume. All in favor? Any opposed? Unanimous. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to do this.
So
Dave, I just have a quick question. I know it's not on the sheet that I gave you tonight, but the streetlights,
Oh, yes.
we
Yep.
need a recommendation from the budget committee, but I don't know if you want to just talk real quickly about it.
thank
Sure.
you, Jody. I was just about to bring that up
I'd
before
love
we
to,
moved on.
I'd love to forget about the streetlights. So, you know, we have the downtown streetlights and we also have the streetlights on all the utility poles around town. And those are all on a cloud-based system that we can monitor. And every year, so the nodes on the lights sometimes need to be replaced and the lights themselves need to be replaced. They'll have a fuse on them. And that number represents a couple things. It represents hiring an electrician because we have to have a man lift, which we don't have, to go up there. And you have to have an actual electrician kind of play around with this because, you know, it's high voltage power up there. And that's line item is what that's representing, as well as, I don't know if you realize this, but people hit these streetlights constantly in the downtown every year where they knock over at least 2 or 3 of these streetlights and then we have to buy another one. And sometimes it's a hit and run where the insurance doesn't pay for it and we have to kind of replace them. So, and then there's also a traffic signal component in there, I think, and that's representing the 3 signals that we have in town. And most of the time it's the one at the Hannaford. So we have to hire a technician to come in because it isn't always as simple as resetting the light. Sometimes they got to replace the bulb or the element in the light, or there's some kind of a glitchy problem with it. But that's what those 3 line or 2 line items represent. Yeah. And I think they're basically based on where we've been in the past and the repairs that will be needed. You just never know how many are going to fault or have a problem with them, but it's not a huge.
So the recommended budget is $28,000 compared to $41,000 this year.
Yeah, so the streetlights and the maintenance are really the 5 and the 3, and the 20 is more of the electricity usage for the actual lights themselves.
Karen?
I noticed, well, I haven't looked this year, but I'm sorry. I haven't looked this year, but I noticed last year, a couple of the streetlights up towards the leather bench, the bases were broken and the wiring exposed.
Yeah, that's an example of somebody right on Tannery Lane, somebody
Have we
knocked.
got any funds to fix those?
Oh, yeah.
It seems like it
Yeah,
might
but-
be a hazard to little kids.
But what we have to do is we have to order those
Yeah.
and it takes almost between 3 months to get those replaced sometimes. I mean, I like having a spare and I generally do, but we had that one get knocked over and the one in front of the Walgreens.
Yeah.
So we used our spare and then we had to order the other one. And if you notice, we just basically put that one up, I think, not too long ago.
Yeah, so
And-
we have plans to replace those bases because they've been broken for well over a year.
Is it just the little door that's
Little
missing?
Decorative base on it
Yeah,
is,
I'll take a look.
pieces are broken off
Oh.
and the wires, you can see the wires. And I was thinking, little kids can see that and
Yeah.
it's an attractive
We don't want
nuisance.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. Okay, I'll take a peek at it.
Okay.
Yep.
Ready for a motion? Anybody?
Are you motioning for the streetlights? Is that correct?
Yeah. We have a motion in a second.
Marina, yeah, I'll second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Passed. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Now we have the Opera House. And you brought entertainment, right?
If this is entertainment, that's a sad statement. Good evening, everybody. My name's Dave Morrison. I am the Opera House manager. I've worked for the town, I think 20 years now, and this is my 7th year managing. So I'd like to start off, if I could, with the PowerPoint, which just gives you a little bit of an overview of last year. Last year, or this current year, has actually been going very well, and we've been pleased about that. So I just want to tell you a little bit about what we've been doing. Camden Opera House, as you probably know, is a half rental, half producing town-owned theater, which makes us really unique in Maine. Typically, folks are one or the other, and rarely owned by a town and doing both. So what you can see in this first one is 83 days of rental events, 18 Opera House produced shows, 4 of the free Summer Sounds concerts at the Snow Bowl, 4 shows that were co-productions, meaning we partnered with a local group, 3 sound check performances, and 4 Blue Cafe shows. So everything other than the 83 days of rental events are Opera House produced shows. And then as far as the variety of the content, we've had 24 music shows, 23 dance shows, 16 film showings, 13 theater productions, 4 conference days, 2 comedy shows, and then 4 other shows. The Community Arts Fund is something we started a few years ago, and it works by donation. So it's really outside of the budget process, but it has become a success and a real driver for us. If you buy tickets online on our website, there's a donation button, or you can also round up, which a lot of people do. We also do a fairly small appeal mailing once a year, and we also have donation buckets out at a lot of shows. So what we do with that money is we do free programming, like the Summer Sounds concerts at the Snow Bowl in the summer. Those are free. The Blue Cafe, which is a free, we created a performance space on the 3rd floor. And then we also underwrite other things to keep the prices way down, like the summer theater camp and the Sound Check series, which introduces sort of up and coming artists, mostly local folks. So as of March, our balance is $14,190.
So I'm confused here because what I saw today.
Turn your mic on.
Yeah.
Deb, turn your mic on.
I'm just trying to find my place. Tab
Sorry,
7,
it's
page 28.
went off again.
Tab 7, page 28. Is that where everybody is?
Yes.
Okay,
Last page.
last page.
It's the last page of it. There's more information.
Yeah, I have more pages.
You have more pages?
I do.
There's a lot of
Yeah.
No.
I have a bunch on tab 9. I'll find a whole bunch of
Tab 9.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's where I see it also, yeah. Okay,
So we'll explain that after Dave kind of runs through. I
Okay,
can-
great.
yeah.
So you can go to the next slide if you'd like. One thing we do that we are sort of excited about is we work with a lot of local businesses and local organizations. There's a lot of partnership that goes on at the Opera House, and this is just shows some of our sponsors. For example, when we book touring acts, they need lodging and they need dinner and, things that can be very expensive if we had to pay for them. So we've had great success with local businesses and organizations who have sponsored shows, and that helps us keep our costs down, and it allows us to promote them and thank them for that. This is just some of the things we've had last year. There was too many to show all of them, but you see a picture of Candace Springs, who is a well-known jazz vocalist. She headlined Jazz in June, which was our 3-day music festival in June. Up at the top there, that's Kinetic Energy Alive, or Kia Tessman's dance company, they're really great. We have a lot of wonderful dance companies, but this is just an image of one. In the upper corner, there's the Mallet Brothers. That particular night, I think it was 17 below. Their father, Dave Mallet, was behind a curtain on stage, and the governor was 2 rows back. So that was a great night. And then you see the Camden Conference, which we just finished in February, and SIFF, which is the Camden International Film Festival, in September. They just had the Cabin Fever Festival a few weeks ago, which was really great. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to read this description to you. It says, the Camden Opera House, a restored Victorian theater on the National Register, brings local and world-class arts and entertainment to the Mid-Coast, is an economic driver for downtown Camden, and offers a place for local nonprofits, dance and theater companies, and others to connect with the community. We partner with civic organizations, schools, the library, Points North, the Camden Conference, and members of the business community. Using donations to the Community Arts Fund, we present free and low-cost events like the Summer Sounds Concert Series, the Blue Cafe, Sound Check concerts, and Summer Theater Camp Week. And we organize and support the Jazz in June Music Festival. You can go to the next slide. And this just says, we are a year-round theater. We have 2 full-time staff, which is myself and our technical director, Carl Cron, and one part-time, which is Dagny Ernest, who is our box office and promotions manager. We also have per diem folks who may be house managers or tech people, and we hire them on a show-by-show basis as needed. Our production revenue and rental revenue has increased from last year. And the budget that we're going to look at tonight really doesn't have any increases other than staff and benefits. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions I can.
So just to explain the budget a little bit, it says, what we're voting on tonight is the town's contribution towards the Opera House's budget, because the Opera House has its own source of revenue, but this revenue doesn't make up for all the expenses. So this is just our contribution is what you're asking for tonight, which is back to the 2024 levels.
That's correct. We are now, pardon me, a special revenue fund like the Snow Bowl. So we operate a little differently, and I may call on you to help me explain it, but the money that comes into the Opera House is from rental revenues, all the various events that we rent out to outside organizations. Opera House production revenues, all the shows we put on, revenue from that. We get some TIF fund support. And then there's the town assessment, which is the real budget component.
Right. And another factor in all of this, because our TIF is so lucrative and because support for the Opera House is high priority in the development plan for the TIF, we can actually use TIF proceeds to offset 100% of the cost of the Opera House. So everything that isn't funded through rentals or production revenue, we can fund through TIF proceeds. So what you see, the town assessment for having the Opera House, so everything that isn't covered by, the revenue it generates is paid for by the tax increment financing district.
So money we already have.
Yes.
Besides, so.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm
So it
I'm-
doesn't impact the mill rate, I
Right.
guess is
That's
what I'm
what I
saying.
mean. So I'm just
Yeah.
curious, the revenue year to date is $180,000 from rentals, and you're budgeting 140 for next year? Was there something extraordinary this year that drove
It's,
that?
it's a hard thing to get precise because it's so fluid. There's always money going out and money coming in. And some of the events affected haven't happened yet. So it's a little hard to pin down.
So if it's a strong revenue year next year and we don't need to use as much of the TIF money, we just won't use it.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah.
That's all I have. Any questions for Dave? Mark?
As always. Hi, Dave.
Hello, Mark.
I started in town business on the Opera House Committee. It's always been my favorite thing. And one of the questions I just asked Dave, which he didn't have an answer for, maybe next year, is how many people have gone through the doors of the Opera House in a year's time? And I think it's a substantial number of people, both from the town and from around town, which like I say the same thing about the Snow Bowl. It brings people from other areas that contribute to restaurants and everything else in town. So it's just a joy to do that. In the old days, I introduced some shows there, and I always used to ask how many people have never been in the Opera House before, and there was always a group of people, and I was always surprised. But there's new people that discover it every year, and I'm curious here. Anybody here not been in an Opera House show?
Just there this weekend.
Yeah, so it's
Show right
such an asset for the town. I just got to talk about it every year.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that. And it's true. Just anecdotally, we, particularly if it's like the Lunasa Irish Christmas concert, people will drive for hours to these things if they're big fans of that. So it's sort of fun to see the mix of familiar faces and new faces that come.
So the town manager is recommending $222,850.
So moved.
Any second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
I have a,
Oh, Courtney, go ahead.
sorry, it was more of a discussion piece. I don't think it necessarily has anything to do with the vote, but I did want to ask a hypothetical questions when this is all finished. That's fine. When the vote.
Go ahead, ask it now if you want.
Oh, okay. Well, I was curious. So let's say the TIF funds stopped funding the Opera House and it went to like a nonprofit type thing, like a 501c3 or something kind of similar to what I think the Strand does down in Rockland. Those TIFs that are used now to offset that cost, what other things would we allocate those funds for in, for town use?
There's a whole bunch of different things in the development program we could do. So it's, this year, for example, we're using other TIF proceeds to, we're proposing to use them to like redo the public bathrooms and the chamber building. There's stormwater projects that we could do with it. So it's a lot of it's physical infrastructure type projects. I must say, though, there's only so much of that we can do just in the downtown because it's pretty specific to that geographical area. And the downtown is in pretty decent shape of, anywhere else in town. It's got a brand new stormwater system. A lot of the sidewalks are brand new. So, yeah.
So motion on the floor. All in favor? Any opposed? Unanimous. Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you, everyone.
Do you want me to stay for capital and stuff?
No, we probably won't get to it.
Now the newcomer, at least for me, Christy. This is for the library, which
Hi there.
is tab 7, page 23.
Yes. So good evening. I'm Christy Kilfoyle. I'm the Executive Director of the Camden Public Library, and I've been with the library for almost 10 months now. And so if I haven't had the chance to meet you, feel free to pop in and say hello. I do know some of you, so it's great to be able to talk to you tonight. Since arriving in June, I've been able to see and hear firsthand what the library means to the community. And so this is not just through the comments that I receive about how the staff goes above and beyond or how beautiful the library is or the library grounds, but also through the community's generous support of what we do. So I invite you to take a look back at the library's budget from 23-24, and you can see that the library budget, that the income can be generally divided into 4 categories. So we have appeals and grants, programs and book revenue, endowment income, and then the very generous contribution from the town of Camden. And those of you who have been on the budget committee before know that approximately 50% of the funding for the public library comes from this municipal stream. In the expenses, on the expenses side, so we have the meat and potatoes of what it is that we do. We've got books, audiobooks, downloadable books, and all of our programs that we offer to the community, general operating expenses. Then we have our facilities, professional and support staff, which includes any contract labor that we pay for, and our amphitheater and Harbor Park. And at the end of the year in 23-24, we had a slight overage, and we put that towards a facility reserve. If we zoom in on an average day in the library, it is an incredibly active place with kids, teens, adults, older adults, all enjoying the library in very different ways. And this year we did implement some winter hours, and we're about to bump back up to our normal weekly or normal scheduled week of 54 hours. We have 16 staff members right now, and that includes part-time, full-time staff. We have 3 degreed librarians who are on staff right now. When I started, we just had 1. So I'm excited in the last 10 months, we've been able to get folks who have that, the credential. So that's a really wonderful thing as well. Over the last year, our adult program numbers have increased. Our number of programs we've put on has increased 30%. And just goes to show our adult programming coordinator is really knocking it out of the park. And then the beloved children's programs attendance is up 30% for the year, which is pre-COVID. Those are pre-COVID numbers. So we're all really excited to see that people are not just back to using the library. I mean, statistically, the collection use has held fairly steady, but people are back to enjoying and engaging in the library programs, which we're really happy to see. As a part of our strategic planning process, we invited the community to share with us how the library inspires them the most. So we put out a big poster board in the adult nonfiction collection and asked people to respond with Post-it notes. And these are some of the wonderful responses that we received from the community. Let you take a look at those. And anyone who sets foot in the library knows that it's an incredibly active place where people are engaged. And so just evidenced by their own comments. The library recently received a $25,000 grant to court an appeal to remote workers, which is really exciting. My husband is a remote worker, and if that weren't the case, I wouldn't have been able to even come to Maine. So I think it's wonderful that the library is able to support that group of working professionals. And we know that when libraries are partnering with local businesses and local workers, it's increasing this, not only the place of the library within the community, but it's helping to build local economies. And I think it's evident that that's very much the case with the Camden Public Library, ultimately attracting more residents and bringing more people to our lovely town. This is a really fantastic statistic that I think shows the value of the public library within a community. The American Library Association did a study where they looked at what the value of a public library is in terms of its economic benefit. And so for $1 invested in a public library, the community receives $5 in an economic benefit. So the contribution from the town in 23-24 of $555,000 was a realized benefit for the town of Camden, $2,775,000. And so it's hard to sort of quantify what does that mean, right? I think we all feel a certain way about the public library, but I've heard from folks that I've talked with at Rotary that when a tourist walks into their store, they say, "What should I do in Camden?" They say, "We must go to the public library." And so I think there's that partnership there that we're helping to build that name recognition of Camden outside of the town lines. This year we're requesting $589,000. I was a little under here on my slide, so that is for our regular contribution. And then in addition, we're asking for $150,000 in capital expenditures. And so we can go to the next one really quickly. Yeah, here, let's do this one.
Okay.
So just so you can see some of the capital needs that we have, the library was recently, if you've been on the committee before, you've probably heard about the green roof of the library, which is the roof of the lower floor. And this is still a pressing issue, but it has come to our attention that all 4 walls of the library building need to be repointed. And the hope is, the plan is FEMA has rolled that into the project that we're doing with them after the January storm damage that the library incurred. We would still have a 25% responsibility with that FEMA grant. And so that would sort of cover the town and the library's contribution towards that project. We're also hoping that we'll take care of the persistent leaks that we've seen in the library over the years. And then any additional funds that we have available for that are, through that lump sum would be put towards recarpeting, which is also a need in our very heavily used public facility. So I'm happy to answer any specific questions about the budget or anything generally about the library, funding, that sort of thing.
Karen?
Yes.
I have a couple of questions. First
Sure.
of all, the line item for janitorial expenses went from
Yes.
21,600 to 48,000. Why?
Yes. The gentleman who was cleaning the library was cleaning perhaps 1 to 2 hours a day. And it wasn't up to snuff. When I came in, there were cobwebs and dust around the vents and along the chair rail, it was black. We had walls that were covered in black mold. And so I waited a month and then we parted ways. And we were able to get a recommendation from one of the library board trustees of a Camden janitorial service. And they're doing an amazing job. After just a few months, so the carpets have been cleaned, those chair rails are spotless. And to maintain a facility like this, you have to have someone who cares as much as the staff does. And after, I think he had been with the library for 17 years, he really just wasn't caring for the facility in the way that it needed to be cared for. So he also hadn't received a salary increase in 10 years when we had let him go. So I think that maybe had something to do with his lack of enthusiasm for the facility. But this new team is outstanding. The gentleman was in my office today asking if we had any needs. I just think it's not just for, it's also for cleaning products too. So it's the cost of the cleaning materials and it's the cost of the janitorial. So one of the ways that they keep their staff is by paying them very competitively. So we had tried another service in the interim and we had significant issues with that service. We had 7 different cleaners in 4 months. And so that staff felt very uncomfortable with that. It felt like we weren't building a connection at all with this person. There was no trust. And we had an issue with a theft. So there were lots of reasons why we wanted to shift from that vendor as well. So, but the person we have now is fantastic and is giving the building the attention that it needs.
Okay. My next question is human resources consultant went from 3,000 to 24,000. Why?
Let me see that. So
That's item 6285 under operating expenses.
let's see. So let's see, human resources, sorry. It's squished compared to how I usually see it. My guess with that one, and that was projected, right? That's for this new year, it's up. Okay. So some of that was, we were in the transition period where I was last year, I was sort of getting my feet under me. We're asking her to do some additional things like change all of our job descriptions so they're actually ADA compliant. It's taking a lot more time. We also have not only do we have a new provider for our payroll software, but we also have a new retirement account provider. So there's a lot more behind the scenes where she's working on those. There is so much back and forth that's taking so much more of her time. So that would account for that increase in that line.
So you think that 25,000 is going to be there every year, or is this just a one-time thing to get you up to speed?
Sorry, 25,000. Hold on.
3,000 to 25,000.
Oh my. Oh my. Okay. So no, it was supposed to be 2,500. I apologize. Yeah.
Really?
No, I think we're down. So
Oh,
sorry, I'm not.
Yay.
Never mind.
No, that would be an error on my part. No. So the human resources consultant, no, she should certainly not be 25,000.
So that should be 2,500.
Yes. Very
Okay,
sorry
then
about
we
that.
take
But the
that
the
off.
bottom, it doesn't change
The bottom line.
Christie's bottom line number. Your
No.
bottom line number is
No,
still
it's
right.
the same. Yes. Then yeah, I apologize for that.
Oh,
Sorry for
that's
the
okay.
confusion.
And I think
So,
I had one
okay.
more.
Sure.
Capital improvement.
Yes.
Does the library have a large trust account? They used to.
We have several funds. We have the the Centennial Fund, which was, the intention was for it to be set up sort of like an endowment, but it's not a true endowment. We do get 75,000 a year from that account that goes towards operating expenses, but it's not, no, it's not like a true endowment where we've got just an exorbitant amount in the bank.
But you did mention
got-
that some money from this past year went to a capital reserve account?
Yes, so we have and I don't have that account information in front of me, but in one of our bank accounts, we have a small line. I think at the moment, there's maybe 56,000 in that account. And we're trying to grow that for the replacement of the green roof.
Replacement of the what?
The replacement of the green roof.
Okay.
And we're a long way from being able to do that, but we're squirreling away whatever we can because we know it's an inevitability. Mhm.
Okay, so we're going to be making a bottom line adjustment of that 25,000 to 2,500?
No.
The math,
What?
the math didn't flow through, the error didn't flow through to the bottom line.
Yeah, it didn't. No.
Bottom line was correct.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, it didn't fall through. Okay.
Right.
I'm just going to ask about the capital request.
Yes.
Can you just explain again what the 150 is for?
Sure. So the quotes that we've received from FEMA, our initial quote for the masonry work for the library was $400,000. It's going to be even more than that because they've expanded the project to increase waterproofing around the base of the library so that we hopefully won't have those leaks that we have around the historic portion of the library. So it's probably closer to 450, 500,000. And then we have paint and fascia repair, roof repair, and flashing repair that were all damaged during the January storms. So if we take a quarter of that, that would be around the amount that would, be needed to pay the 25% portion that will be on the hook for with FEMA. So there might not be very much left over for recarpeting the library, but
Now, is the town responsible for this because of this ownership, this funky
Yeah.
old document that says that we own the property and
Right. So the town officially owns it. And then it's the library board of trustees that makes management decisions about, how the library operates.
And as always, I have things to say. And I apologize, some people have heard this before. A couple things that I mean, notice is this is one of the few libraries that in the state, I believe, that provides 50% of its funding. I think that's rare.
true.
Also, per capita size, more use of this library than any others in the state, except for Portland and Bangor, are the only two libraries that have more service. I was there today. I'm there every week. I have 4 books out on loan right now. I have 1 on order. But it's an astounding, is when people come to visit, I bring them by as part of my tour stops. I think the way that the new addition was designed is extraordinary, preserving the original building. But there's a story, I've told this before, but I don't know that you've heard it. A number of years ago here in the Opera House, we brought Jack Hanna to town, who
Oh,
was brought animals.
Very
We had
fun,
a show,
yes.
sold out show at the Opera House. This had to be 6, 7, 8 years ago. I don't remember.
Well,
how long
longer
ago.
than that, Mark.
Oh, yeah.
That was a long time. It was a sold out show. It was really popular. And one of the things that Jack did was he gave away, as part of the tour sponsored by his supporters, that he was from the Columbus Zoo. He at every stop he made in his tour, he gave away a trip to the Columbus Zoo for a family. And so everybody put their ticket numbers in the hat, and at the end of the night, he picked a number out of the hat and read the number off. And he said, "Who's this belong to?" And a person stood up in the balcony, said, "It's mine." And I get choked up about this, the whole audience cheered. And Jack was absolutely stunned. He said, "What are you, the mayor or something?" And the person said, "No, I'm the children's librarian." It was Amy who won the award. And I got to tell you, my son went to college this year, but we spent every Saturday in the library for years. But it's interesting because Jack was so taken with that. When Amy actually made the trip to the Columbus Zoo, they all knew who she was because he came back and talked about it.
Wow.
We have the most extraordinary children's librarian. I also know Wyatt really well. I've gotten to know Nora. It's an extraordinary place. And we would be so, like that process, those are my two favorite things. And I can't help but say positive things about both of them.
Thank you, Mark.
So that's my story.
Thank you.
Jeff?
I have a couple things.
Sure.
One is I just did a mental check and it does say 25,000. That
Oh.
131 dropped to 106.
Okay,
Just, you might want to check it.
I will. I will. Yes, thank you. Okay.
I did it in my head, so I
Okay.
trust myself. But
Great.
Okay.
the other one is, right at the top there, the amphitheater rental, you're being really conservative. You probably know that.
Yes.
On the rental.
Can somebody turn his microphone on, please?
I turned mine on. Sorry.
Thank you.
Sorry. Yeah, 26, for 2 years, you've exceeded that.
Mhm.
You can eke out a little bit more, just a thought. And then the last one is, you probably know about it. I've been in the nonprofit world for a long time. I've taken advantage of a Microsoft program called TechSoup.
Mhm.
You can get cheap computers and cheap software. And you're a 501c3, so
Right, right.
you can do it. And if you want to know more, just let me know.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
It's
great.
instead of $1,000, it's like $300
Right. Oh,
or
wonderful.
something. And like Adobe is free and all that kind of stuff.
Okay. Thank you. That's great news.
Yeah, so you
Okay.
might be able to save something on that $25,000 line
Okay.
if it's hardware or software.
Yeah, that's it's higher than I would like, but it's our managed service. So we've got our licenses that are rolled into that line, and also our tech support. We're with Angelcom. So there's,
And TechSoup offers Microsoft support.
do they?
Yeah,
Okay,
so that,
Okay.
I don't know if it's
Yeah, I'll reach
competitive.
out.
They just offered that. They changed it this year.
great. Okay.
I don't
So,
know.
so are we comfortable that the budget is overstated by 22,500?
So this is why I think that it didn't flow through to the actual budget request. So if you look, it's hard to look back for the FY25 budget was 585, and this year's request is 589. So that's a $4,000 difference.
Mhm.
So if what was it? Was it HR?
Resources
Human
consultant.
resources?
Yeah.
Since given the breakdown, it would have been much more than a $4,000 difference. It would have been like a $12,000.
Right, but there was the Siemens amount is gone this year. That's 13,000.
That's true.
It's true.
That's
The
true.
Siemens
I
one.
wonder
Yeah.
if
So
about
I'm
this,
guessing
yeah.
that
But they decreased that from the
Yeah.
amount that they asked as well. So that's kind of a wash. Because before it was that they budgeted for it And it showed up in their budget and we just said, why would we do that? Like, we just won't ask for it. We won't
Right.
include it in our budget either.
So
that-
I'm gonna.
They won't include it in the amount that they ask from us and they also won't put it in their budget.
Right, right.
Does that make sense?
The actual Excel sheets that did the sums.
Christie does.
They probably ought to be redone.
I'm gonna suggest that, so that instead of $739,000, if we take the 22,500, which is the difference, it would be 716,500.
Yeah.
And I think if we make a motion for that amount, if that goes through,
moved.
we accept it, and
Matt,
then
did you mean 25,000 or 22.5?
she wants 2,500. She has 25,000, so the
Oh.
difference would be 22,500.
There you go. Yeah.
And
got
then
it.
if we find out next week that we were wrong, we can come back and revisit it and do it. But let's go with the lower number, the conservative number tonight is my recommendation,
Yeah.
which was moved
All
by
right, so
Karen.
move. Yeah.
Second? Any further discussion on $716,500?
I have a question, but it's not about budget.
All in favor? Any opposed? It's unanimous. Courtney? we've got-
But yeah, can I'm just curious, with all the grant talk and stuff that we were talking about earlier with Jeremy, and the money that is needed for, all the extra maintenance costs, has there been any look into grants for historic building renovation or anything like that that can help offset that cost? And
Yeah.
is that sort of an active process?
Yes, I've written a $300,000 Save America's Treasures grant through the National Park Service, which is only accessible to facilities that are National Historic Landmarks. I'm not sure, they haven't publicized when that's announced, but I'm anticipating sometime this summer. So that is in the works. It is a one-to-one match, and so we would potentially be able to use the 150,000 in capital expenses as the town's match, but then we would have to go out to the community or donors for an additional 150,000 to match that. So that would be the hope that, yes, the FEMA project would be able to be taken care of by those grant funds. Anything additional that, the town funds could be able to do, but then that $300,000 could really take care of and tackle some of the other things that we know are issues with the building, but weren't rolled into the January storms. So that is the hope, yes, that we'll get some additional funding for that. But also reliant upon federal grant requests, so.
Deb?
Has there ever been any discussion in Camden about consolidating all of the, what are town-owned facilities that need to do private fundraising into one kind of community effort? Like Support Camden and for the Opera House, the Snow Bowl, the library, but all one conglomerate, one big campaign.
We haven't, but I think that that's a really good idea because it's a very small donor pool that we're all kind of looking to.
Yeah, and it's not all nonprofits, it's those that are town-owned.
Civic
Yeah,
functions.
Right,
Yeah.
right. It would be a really interesting discussion to have.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So one more item, is 10 minutes enough?
So it's really just, we kind of gone through them. If anybody has any questions about any of the capital projects that have to do, you talked about the library a little bit and the plow trucks. I think there were a few Opera House capital projects as well. There was the replacement to the rigging and the lighting.
There was a fire truck requested and then not on your budget.
That's right, yeah. So just for the ones that had to do with the departments that we went over tonight.
So how does this work as part of the budget process?
So you'll really approve it kind of at the end.
Okay, so.
When you have like that fuller picture, this is
Okay, that's what I
more,
thought.
you know,
Okay.
when you have Dave Christie here to answer any questions about capital projects or capital equipment that they're asking for, it's a good, good opportunity to,
This is just informational, not, no, we're not going to vote tonight on
you don't
this
have to
one.
vote.
Okay.
Oh, Dave was reminding me, I think I talked about it maybe in the very beginning, but the replacement to the HVAC system in this building. You want to,
Yeah, I can.
you want to talk about it? So it's really good that we're not doing this in the summer because half of the air conditioning in this building is broken. So it's, I think it's like this half of the building and then I forget which, this half of the building and then the other half still has it.
Can I ask
Well,
a question about that? Wasn't that covered by Siemens?
They did not do HVAC or heating system in this building.
They didn't do cooling, and
Yeah.
the way that's set up is there's 4 units and they're on the outside of the wall over here if you buy long grain, and there's 4 zones. There's this office or this room. There's the code office. Then there's the offices where Audra is, and then there's the where everybody registers their car, and there's the clerk's office. There's those are the 4 areas, and 2 of the units are up or basically failed at this point. They're not working. That's why I put an air conditioner in this window to kind of carry us through the summertime. But those systems will need to be replaced. So what we did was we had Siemens came in and they actually did a study and they looked everything over and they found some code issues with the return air. And it was part of a project years ago that never really got completed. And it's not a big problem, but it needs to be corrected when we upgrade the cooling units. But we looked at also upgrading them to a mini split heat pump so that you can do that fine tuning adjustment with the heat and not run the boiler all the time. So it kind of, there's some savings there on the heat end of it. Instead of like, this is an old boiler system and it's not very responsive. So people get cold, they turn it up, the boiler works and heats the whole building up to kind of warm one space up. Instead of doing that, we're gonna put we're proposing to put mini split heat pumps on those 4 areas. And the quotes that we received were, we got one quote from Siemens after they did the study and the recommendation. And then we looked into a different vendor to get a second quote who gave us a little bit more competitive price. And it involves, like I said, replacing the 4 mini split, the 4 coolant air conditioners on the outside with 4 new mini split heat pumps with new racks, new disconnect, new wiring, and plumbing it all in, we got a fairly reasonable price on doing that. So that's the scope of the project, and it can be broken into 2 pieces. I would think it would be better to kind of maybe do all 4 of them at the same time, but that's up to you.
Quick question.
Yep.
If doing the heat pumps, and that should save money, the expense will come up front, but that should save money and ongoing expenses, right?
Well, it's hard to predict. It's depending on how electricity usage, how much heating is incurred in the year. But the thought process is that you can kind of set the heat a little lower with the boiler and then kind of fine tune it with the heat pump in the offices area. And then the same thing with this room right here. When you're not using it, you don't need to be cooling it down or heating it. Like when we're having meetings in here in the wintertime and it's cold, what are we going to do? We're going to turn the boiler up and we're going to heat the whole building. We won't need to do that. So in theory, the thought process is, it would be more efficient and it would also be more comfortable. I think that's really the objective, those 2 things. So, it's like, that's a good example of infrastructure that failed that we haven't replaced yet. We have 2, units on the outside that aren't working.
We'll talk more about this in 2 weeks when we do
Sure.
debt service and how it's financed.
Yes. Yep.
It was good to be able to talk about that.
I appreciate that.
So you
And
understand kind of.
We got the trucks too.
And you got the trucks.
Any questions for Dave or anything on the capital projects that
Just a couple.
We won't go on, we won't do, that we won't be able to talk about in 2 weeks?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Because we'll be going over the debt and capital again in 2 weeks and actually voting on that.
Oh, is it
once.
just for Dave?
Yeah, go
That's
ahead.
why we're doing it?
Yep.
No, so I don't have anything. If it's general. We're just aiming at Dave right now. Is that your questions?
If it's Dave and it's
We have
related to
him
the
like under
capital
fire
purposes.
here.
Yeah, I don't have,
Okay,
nothing for Dave.
I guess I would accept the motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank
Now you
you.
can ask a question.
Oh. But I don't want Dave to hear it.
It's not for Dave.